Hello, everybody. Greetings from Indian Medical Association. I'm Dr. K.K. Agarwal, President, Confederation of Medical Association of Asia and Oceania. Happy Diwali to everybody and happy inner Purnima and outer Amavasya to everybody in this universe. Diwali basically signifies inner enlightenment. Because the Diwali day, we had two choices, either to put a gap in our weekly program. But I thought being a Diwali, everybody may be busy. So we will still have our commitment and have a very short presentation. And I hand it over to Dr. Ramesh Datta, the Treasurer of Indian Medical Association.
Uh, Welcome, Dr. KK. I wish all the participants a very, very happy Diwali. And I am enlightened that I am with Dr. KK Agarwal on this day of Deepavali with him. And I request him, who is the past president of Indian Medical Association and the chairman of CMAAO. And he is our resource person. And I am sorry that for last two sessions I could not attend because of certain exigencies at my end. So I feel sorry for that. But with these words, I once again request Dr. KK Agarwal to update us about the COVID-19 disease. So I welcome Dr. KK.
I will take only a 20-25 minutes program today. We'll have half the shift. But I want everybody to watch it carefully and would request Ramesh Datta to intervene and discuss these points. So this is the scenario. I'm going to take the scenario in 7 continents, what is happening. In the word, if you think, if you see here, in the word, if you see here, if you see the word picture, the graph is increasing in the form of 3 waves. The first wave, second wave, and the third wave. But I will take them as only first wave because there is no gap between the two cases. So in the word over, we have the first wave, which is continuing, which is much longer than the Spanish flu wave. And if you see, the number of deaths were very high initially. Then number of deaths were equivalent to number of cases. Now again, we are seeing number of deaths are matching the new cases. You can see the difference between the two graphs. It tells us that initially the cases were low, the deaths were very, very, very high. And then the cases reduced, the death reduced. Then the cases are exorbitantly higher, but death rate is also higher, which should not have happened. If this is happening, it means somewhere in the world, people are not being able to manage the disease. We come back to the North America. I have taken 3 symbolic countries, USA and Canada, and then Mexico. If you say Canada is not behaving like America, in Canada, we have a gap of 3 months when the cases reduced and the mortality reduced. The upper line is the cases, the lower line is the mortality. If you see Mexico versus Canada, in Mexico, there is only 1 wave and mortality is equivalent to the wave. More the number of cases, more the mortality, less the number of cases, less the mortality. So in Mexico, treatment has not changed a difference. Treatment has not made a difference. Whether you treat or you don't treat, the mortality is following the number of cases. But if you see in Canada, in the second wave, the number of cases are very small, but the mortality is very high in Canada. If you see the number of cases, the number of cases are increasing and the mortality is reducing. Number of cases were less, mortality was higher. Number of cases are more, the mortality is very, 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 very low. So something happened in Canada. They have learned how to manage cases. So therefore, mortality is lower. Mortality cannot happen, reduce without interventions. In America also, if you see, they are showing a third internal wave, though the national wave is one. It all depends upon where the cases are occurring, and their mortality is reducing, reducing, and reducing. So they have not been able to control the number of cases, but their mortality is significantly high, but reducing. Now, what is common between USA and Canada? We will come back. We come back to South America. We are taking 3 examples. And the 3 examples we are taking in South Africa is Brazil, Peru, and Argentina. And if you see Brazil, Peru, and Argentina, all South American countries are showing the same pattern. And the same pattern is they are all in phase 1, but their mortality patterns are same as that of number of cases. So number of cases more, mortality more, number of cases more, mortality more, number of cases more, mortality more. And if you see, this pattern is matching the Mexico pattern. So Mexico in North America is following the pattern of all countries in South America. That means as the number of cases are increasing, the mortality is also increasing, which indicates in Mexico, Brazil, Peru, and Argentina, they are either they have not been able to manage the disease, or there is some factor in them which is not reducing their mortality. We come back to South African countries. In the South African countries, I have taken South Africa, Morocco, and Egypt as 3 examples. And you see again, the pattern in South Africa is the same as pattern of Brazil, Peru, Mexico. So in Mexico, Brazil, Peru, Argentina, South Africa, Morocco, and Egypt, the mortality pattern are dependent on the number of cases. That means their mortality is fixed. More the number of cases, more the mortality. All these countries are showing a single wave. A single wave. If in South Africa a second wave will come, it will either come in South Africa or it will come in Egypt, where we are seeing the first wave is over and number of cases have gone down substantially. Now, if you come back to the countries of Oceania, Oceania is Australia and New Zealand. Comparatively, they are spared. But in Australia, if you see, the second wave is increased, but the mortality is low. In the New Zealand, the second wave is yet to come. Even if the second wave is coming, it is hardly any. So these 2 countries are comparatively spared of itself, but we can see the pattern of Australia, which is showing as the number of that the mortality is reducing. Now come back here in Europe. All European countries are showing the same pattern except Russia. So France, Russia, UK, Italy, Germany, Spain. If you see the top image, you will see the first wave, which is very slow, then the second wave. See UK, first wave, second wave is very high. Italy, first wave, second wave. Germany, first wave, second wave. Spain, first wave and second wave. And if you take out the Russia, where the number of cases are increasing with number of mortality, Russia is not behaving like other countries of the Europe, Russian countries. They are showing pattern of increasing mortality with increasing number of cases. That is, in spite of their Sputnik vaccine, which has come, they have not been able to reduce the mortality. It means in Russia, there is something wrong with their treatment strategies. The mortality is the same. Mortality has not reduced. In France, if you see, as second wave, the mortality is very, 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 very low. In France, UK, Italy, Germany, and Spain, The second wave shows very, 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 very low mortality. Now, what can happen in Europe? In Europe, we have seen multi-system inflammatory disease. In Europe, we saw dexamethasone as the main study which showed a significant mortality reduction. In Europe, we have seen that multi-system inflammatory disease has come in children, it has come in adolescents, it has come in adults. So I particularly feel that European diseases are a disease where there is a hyper-inflammatory response, hyper-cytokine response, hyper-TNF-alpha response, hyper-PLA2 response. Therefore, ever since they have started dexamethasone in their protocol, because they were the first one to bring in, they have been able to show substantial reduction in mortality, even though the number of cases are rising, rising, and rising. This pattern we have not seen in African countries, in Brazil companies, we have not seen this pattern. We have not seen this pattern in Mexico. We are seeing this pattern also in USA and Canada. In USA and Canada, they are trying multiple things. So they are attacking the cytokines. So whichever country is attacking the cytokines, they are showing reduction in mortality, but not in Mexico, Brazil, Peru, Argentina, South Africa, Morocco, and Egypt. Now we come back to India. Unfortunately, India is also on the first wave. And I'm surprised in India, though the death rate is more, but the death rate is constant. If you see the graph of daily new cases and daily deaths, they are following the pattern of Mexico, they're following the pattern of South Africa, South America, and number of cases, number of deaths are equivalent to the number of cases. As the number of cases are reducing, so this is the first wave in India. It hasn't gone into a zero. So if we expect this first wave, this should settle down by next 2 months. Because if I have to say April to July, May to July, so after 3 months, we expect this wave to settle down. Then 2 more months of no cases, and then the second wave comes. If it has to behave like a European wave. So in the first wave of India, we have seen that mortality has not reduced substantially. Mortality, if you see the graphs are the same. Mortality has not reduced in India. It has remained the constant. If you see in India, Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Uttar Pradesh, Maharashtra, and Delhi, all of them are having the same pattern. You can see ups and down, but all of them have the same pattern. So it is first wave. It confirms it is a first wave. But in Delhi, you see 3 waves. Now, these are not 3 waves. This is single wave. These are internal waves. And these are the missing diagnosis. These are the cases where you have missed the diagnosis because of the number of testing. So I still feel it may be internal variation in Delhi. You want to call it as a third internal wave, it's okay. Then if this is a third internal wave, it matches with the third internal wave of USA. If you can see in USA also, there are internal waves of the first wave. That type of a wave, if you want to call it as in Delhi, it's okay. But it basically indicates Delhi has shown 25% seropositivity, constant. So in Delhi, the seropositivity hasn't changed. So interpretation will be it is a single wave, but it is showing marked variation because of testing facilities. Now these waves have come because Delhi shifted from RT-PCR to rapid antigen testing. And because of that, 50% of the cases were missed. So I particularly feel all India is showing the same pattern. But the unfortunately thing is that though we are talking about our mortality has gone down, actually it hasn't gone down as per the graph. Now I want to compare India with other neighboring countries. If you see Bangladesh, single wave, they are behaving like India. Number of cases are reducing, mortality is reducing. If you see Pakistan, Pakistan now has shown that their first wave is over. After that, for 3 months, they are showing there are no cases, and now the cases have started rising. Now, if this happens, Pakistan will behave more like Europe. And in this Pakistan, we are going to have the start of the second wave. It looks like this may be a start of the second wave. If this increases, this may increase, and increase. We'll have to follow the mortality pattern in Pakistan, whether they increase or decrease. Sri Lanka is now showing up cases. If you see the growth, now you are showing us growth. And these cases are equivalent with the number of deaths. Up till now, Sri Lanka was spared, but Sri Lanka probably is having the significant first wave, and the mortality is also high. So it is behaving like any other Asian countries. So I pick up Nepal. Is this the first wave, if you want to call it as? In Nepal also, as the number of cases are increasing, the mortality is increasing. Bhutan is a spared country, no deaths so far. Now I come back to another part of Asia. These are China, Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Singapore, and South Korea. Now these are the countries who have same type of a racial origin, thin built, absent Leiden 5 mutation, absent factor 6 mutation, absent factor S mutation, normally non-hypercoagulable countries. The incidence of DVT, thromboembolism in the country is very, very, very low. So these are the countries who does not belong to inflammatory countries. So these are non-inflammatory countries. And if you see the pattern everywhere is the same. Number of cases are very low, deaths are very low. They all are behaving the same way. And if you see Singapore behaving the same, number of cases increasing, but no mortality. Now you can't say that Singapore, Hong Kong, Taiwan, China have better facilities for treatment. Still, people want to go to US for treatment, and people want to go to London for treatment. So therefore, you cannot say that reduction in China, Taiwan, and Hong Kong is because of their better treatment facilities. You cannot say that they are because of their density population, because Hong Kong is more density population than New York, and we have seen a catastrophe in New York and not in Hong Kong. So there is something different in their races, that they are a non-inflammatory countries. And then we have Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, again, Muslim countries. All of them are showing the same pattern, more the cases, more the mortality. So if you see, all the Muslim countries are showing the same pattern, more the number of cases, more the mortality. Somewhere or other, they are linked to inflammatory process. Then I come back to Iran, Iraq, and Saudi Arabia. These are, again, Muslim-dominated countries. And the pattern is the same. As the number of cases are increasing or decreasing, the mortality is also increasing and decreasing. They are Muslim countries, but Muslim Islam doesn't make them. I'm sorry, I'm getting cough. I'm looking for my cough medicine. बेटे पानी दो जरा, पानी दो. So the pattern is the same in these countries. Japan is also showing a reverse pattern. Japan is more like behaving like a South Korean countries. Again, thin built, less inflammatory conditions. So I want to interpret into two types of responses of Corona-19. The first response is China, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Singapore, South Korea, Japan responses. The second response is European response. France, Spain, Germany, except Russia, all European countries are behaving the same. The third response we are getting is like more the cases, more the mortality, less the cases, less the mortality. Now, can we interpret this in terms of immunology? Then we have to understand two responses, that is called Th1 response and Th2 response. T means thymus, H means helper, 1 means 1 response, 2 response, and 17 response. Th1 response is a cellular response, and Th2 response is a humoral response. So those countries who have predominant Th2 response, that means they have good cytokines. They have good cytokines. They have IL-4 predominant. With that, they have IL-10 predominant. So interleukin-10 and interleukin-4 responses there. These are the people who make rapidly antibodies. These are the people who will have rapid clearance of the virus within 4 to 7 days. So my interpretation, this is a theoretical assumption as the interpretation is, that those people and those countries who are getting a better Th2 response, they will predominantly behave like South Korea, China, Hong Kong, Singapore, Japan. And if you see, looking at their faces, they all have a different racial component. And when I spoke to Singapore, they said, we don't see at all thrombotic complications. They say, we don't see that type of a Th1 response. So those countries which behave like a Th2 response are producing a different type of an immunity. All those countries which are showing Th1 response are divided into two categories. Now, Th1 response is seen in all Muslim countries, Indian subcontinent, European countries. We are all showing hyperinflammatory immune response. If they are treated early, they are showing the pattern of Europe. And if the treatment pattern differs in the country, the uniform, you are missing cases, then they are showing the pattern of fixed mortality. So fixed mortality means, 1 second, बेटे मेरे यहाँ पे खांसी की दवाई थी. Anyway, I'm not been able to get the. So in that particular condition, I have no scientific explanation for this. But the more and more I'm reading about immunology, and the more and more I am interacting with people, so I'm getting different types of responses. If your gamma interferon response is very high, if your cytokine response is very high, you get very severe cytokine response, delayed pneumonia, and if you do not give them anticoagulation and steroids early, we are losing the game. In India, we are getting a predominant prothrombotic state. So somewhere or the other, I personally feel that this hypothesis and this observation of mine, IMA, this has been approved by CMAAO countries. We may again sit with some of our senior colleagues, and if we all agree, unless we give anticoagulation and anti-inflammatory early, this discussion has nothing to do with prevention of, we are not, because this is not prevention based, this is only on mortality reduction. If we really want to reduce the mortality, otherwise, when we have a second wave, which may come after 3 or 4 months, and if we do not have a standard protocol, we will have a catastrophe in the second wave. Now, we all are depending on the vaccine, that the vaccine will come. We expect a vaccine war in the next 2 months. Pfizer says I'm 90% better. The Russian vaccine says I am 92% better. Yesterday, Moderna says, wait for me, I'm coming in 1 week with the results. I'm going to be better. Bharat Biotech says, my results are also coming, they are under analysis. Johnson & Johnson says, my results also I'm going to announce. So in the next 2 weeks, you're going to find everybody, they have given a benchmark that I will be 90% better. And you know, in medical statistics, when there are 10 parameters, at least one parameter you will achieve 90%. So they will start looking into the minute actions and say, I'm 90% in this regard, I'm 90% in this regard, I'm 90% in this regard. A confusion is going to come. In India, vaccine will come. I had interacted in my shows with Dr. N.K. Arora and Dr. Ganguly in the last 2 days on vaccine updates. Vaccines are going to come. At the moment, their criteria is production of antibodies. But we also know that multi-system inflammatory disease is known to occur where antibodies are present. Now, when we go for a vaccine production, we don't have a naive population. So out of 100 people, we don't know how many of them have already received the antibodies because of a natural infection. And we don't know that this naive population who have present antibodies, if you give them an injection, what will happen? Will they produce a disease enhancing antibody mediated disease enhancement? We don't know. Will they produce a multi-system inflammatory disease like situation? We don't know. Will they behave like dengue? In dengue, when vaccine came, it was said, if you have got one dengue, you should not take the vaccine, because unless you are a naive population, second vaccine may increase or enhance the disease property. So it's a big thing in India. We still don't know, because now Indian government has told all the developers that once your vaccine has been given to people, now you go to the mice experiments, give them human antibodies, re-inject the antigen, your vaccine, and see whether it produces disease enhancement or not. So as on today, I sign off by saying that we are still in a primitive situation as far as COVID-19 is concerned. We are hoping a big thing from the vaccine. We don't know what will happen. We still don't know whether the government will give vaccine to private doctors or not. We still don't know. Maybe the private doctors may be asked to buy the vaccine. I have interacted with a couple of international people in the hospitality industry. The new scenario will come that international ticket bookers will say that if you book our ticket 3 weeks in advance, if you want to go for a cruise or if you want to go for an international flight, we'll give you the vaccination free. There will also be a pharma doctors interaction again, because if the vaccine is in shortage, all pharma companies will come forward and buy, and they will start giving it to their key opinion doctors or key leader doctors. Will that be unethical or not? It's a stand to be taken at this particular moment by the IMA. This is the right time to take a stand that may be passed as not, that is ethical to take it, because it's a question of a new disease. By hook or by crook, if you take a vaccine, we should be allowed. Another two things which IMA has to feel, which I was given to the government through Dr. N.K. Arora yesterday. It is a time for the government to come forward and define a fixed compensation for vaccine failure, no fault compensation, and a fixed compensation for the company, because in this case, when the vaccine, suppose somebody dies with a vaccine, remember this vaccine is being given in adults, not in children. Adults are already sick, children are healthy. So healthy people won't die. But in adults, when you are giving the vaccine, they may die of natural circumstances, they may die of natural diseases. All of them will start looking for a compensation. Therefore, no fault compensation has to come immediately. And this is also the time for the doctor. This is the best time for the doctors to come forward and say, we will not give any immunization unless you give us immunity against the side effects. So this is the time that unless you give us the immunity, because if one complication comes, people are going to sue the doctors also. That we will participate, and with this will give you two things. One, you can come back to no fault compensation as a whole in all diseases, because if it is given for COVID, it has to be given ultimately in all diseases. You can come back to a fixed compensation over a period of time. And the second thing is that if you do that as a immunity to doctors for immunization, slowly, it gives you a lot of opportunities to do so. So I sign off by saying that now the patterns are emerging. Whatever I have discussed today, I've been watching all over the world. Nobody has analyzed it this way, the way I have analyzed Th1 response, Th2 response, and the comparison with various subcomponents. So I thought on this Diwali day that it be a short presentation of Happy Diwali to everybody. And that's all. Back to Dr. Ashokan to give his views.
Thank you, Dr. KK sir. It reminds me of the job still to be done by IMA. You had spoken in the State President Secretary's meet on 10 points. I think a document or a report, since if there is no further input has come from others, the Mortality Reduction Committee can give right now. But this is the right time, as you rightly said. If we can utilize our clinical protocol for the second wave, I think the clinicians will be doing a great service to the patients by saving them. I agree with you. When you say that use the steroids and the anticoagulants on day one, as a matter of fact, you helped my own staff nurse who had 106 degrees temperature to start with after infection. You told me to start on steroids on day one. And anticoagulation, she received 16 shots after consulting Dr. JK also. And she lives today, she has joined back duty. She had difficulties, she suffered a lot. I am grateful for that advice. I think this scientific information should be like off-label prescription. We should be able to absorb and use it on a larger scale. Maybe that even maybe a prospective study also. I'm sure you will be able to lead some light on this, because your strength in the technical areas will always help Indian Medical Association to lead on these things. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. So I still offer my services, which I offered last time, that let's have a group of around 200, 300 people, 10 members from each state, which I can train them in treatments, which they can follow it up there. So we can have a IMA force of treatment who are updated, who can guide their respective states. So if you can have 10 people from each state, 300 batch, in 2 days, I can train them on total treatment protocols with scientifically on the basis of the document which we prepared.
Right, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes, Ramesh.
Sir, one question. Leaving aside this inadequate testing, what are the other factors which are responsible for a rise in COVID-19 cases in recent days?
See, when you talk about COVID-19 cases, pollution, there are studies available that COVID-19 cases, they rise with the pollution. Pollution increases, reduces nasociliary movement, causes injury to the pharynx, and causes injury to the respiratory tract. Therefore, more viruses get deposited there. In winter, the protein membrane, the lipid membrane gets frozen, so therefore viruses stays longer in winter. All viruses, they are more in winter. Third is this is a festive season. People are not mixing up, because what is happening is people who have suffered, they are saying I have a right to go out, but they don't tell people that I have already positive antibodies, therefore I'm going out. Seeing them, others who are negative are also moving out, so they are getting cross infections. That's the third one. And the fourth one is now the disease is spreading from joint families to nuclear families. Up till now in Delhi, we haven't got an epidemic in Jaggi Jhopri clusters. The day that occurs, that will be the bomb.
Yes, yes.
That will be the bomb, because it hasn't gone. Dharavi-like state has not come in Delhi. The day Dharavi-like state comes in Delhi, we will have a bomb.
Okay. Sir, thank you very much. On behalf of Indian Medical Association, I am very thankful to our HSG, Dr. R.V. Asokan, for organizing this webinar every week, conducted by our Honorable Dr. K.K. Agarwal. And at the same time, I am grateful to Dr. K.K. Agarwal was updating us every week with something or the other. And today he has really enlightened us about the pattern of the disease all over the world. So with these words, I once again thank Dr. K.K. Agarwal and my Guruji for such an extensive talk on the pattern. And I also thank Dr. Sanchita for organizing and helping in conducting this webinar, and all the persons behind the curtain who has made this webinar a success. With these words, I once again thank Dr. K.K. Agarwal, our HSD Dr. Asokan, and all the participants on this day, and I wish them all a very, very happy, prosperous, and safe Deepavali. Please keep safe so that we can conduct more and more webinars in the weeks to come. With these words, I thank all of them. Thank you very much, sir.